Everyone, and welcome to my channel Truth for Trauma. As this is my first video upload, firstly I would like to introduce myself. My name is Michelle and I am a holistic health therapist. During this episode I will give a brief introduction to what Truth for Trauma will entail and my reasons for setting it up. It has taken me 8 long years to recover from complex trauma and chronic illness after all commonly known conventional medical treatments and methods had failed me. It was at this stage I realised no one can fix another's painful emotional experiences. It's an inner challenge, a solo journey, one which requires strength, faith, trust and determination. Other health professionals who treat outside of allopathic medicine also play a key role in helping a person to restore to full health and wholeness, meaning the physical, emotional, spiritual self. Functional medicine addresses molecular health. We are, after all, 80% water bodies, along with addressing vitamin, mineral deficiencies, which occur as a result of trauma, the gut psychology connection. Obviously, food nutrition is by far the most important. However, profit appears to take precedence for the pharmaceutical giants and food companies with little regard for human life. And the body cannot sustain the burden of overload of these poisons and toxins, which then accumulate, taking the individual so far away from the cause. Further confusion sets in as separate disease conditions manifest. According to the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, a study published in 2017 and last updated in August 21 states that 792 million people are currently living with a mental health disorder, and the Global Mental Health Statistics Overview show figures of 970 million. These articles I will put into the show notes. My leap of faith required a very large spade and a lot of deep digging as I embarked upon an unknown journey for truth and answers. It wasn't an easy path, the one less travelled. However, on reflection, I wouldn't change a moment of it, especially to finally fully feel and experience health and wholeness after many years of mayhem and carnage. My journey and recovery has now enabled me to share aspects with others who currently sit stuck under this umbrella term of trauma, in utter confusion, with endless brick wall encounters. The aim is to share my story to help others, as I believe everyone deserves their individual truth. Emotional health cannot be restored by any magic pill. So, what is trauma exactly? Trauma is an umbrella term for impact of injury to an individual's emotional brain. And a few examples of this are war veterans, sexual abuse, rape, incest, a physical accident involving a serious head injury, belief systems, life-altering circumstances, domestic abuse, bullying, or a sudden loss, bereavement. Using child sexual abuse as an example, when this type of trauma occurs, it's classified as a brain injury, which instantly derails the emotional brain. The damage is instant and the consequences shortly begin to display and affect the victim's development, health, behaviour, relationships and their personal relationship with their creator. This injury manifests in a psychological and neurological manner. Once the trauma has taken place, it disables the victim's ability to thrive in life as they search hopelessly to no avail for help and understanding. This inner pain and confusion is then projected onto others. The mainstream medical system, more often than not, slot these trauma symptoms into various psychiatric disorders, which further hinders the victim's opportunity to recover, and they become further victimised via the system as their emotional trauma begins to manifest, not only psychologically, but physically too. The mind-body-spirit connection. From my own personal experiences in the medical system, then minimise the victim's traumatic experiences, and the situation becomes relentless and hopeless, as the unhealed victims then often roam through life carrying the guilt, blame and shame for the perpetrator's actions. To conclude this episode, the only agenda I have is truth for humanity, and I hope everyone who fits into any of the above categories discussed will jump aboard the ship of Truth for Trauma. Healing is a forever journey. However, if you persevere and refuse to give up or give in, a better, different version of the old you will emerge. Your traumatic experiences do not define who you truly are. You can't change the past, but you can utilise your experiences in a positive way to grow and evolve in the future. When we heal, we are no longer capable of hurting, and this allows for love to re-enter. You can't fully love another person until you fully love yourself. Once you believe in yourself, you will accomplish great things. And as you learn to navigate life through love and feeling, your destination will become your journey. Trauma can be healed and health can be restored. So always walk in your truth. Oh, and just to finally conclude, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Alex over at Humanity Wins and Pat and Joel from Wake in the Future. I couldn't have kicked off my channel without their support, kindness and help, so thank you guys. If you like this video and any future content I plan to add, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, a share or subscribe to help the channel grow and to spread the word for Truth for Trauma. Any questions you may have, feel free to email me at michellegtruthie@protonmail.com, sorry. And I'll be back later on in the week with another episode. Thanks, everyone. Courage begins with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. Strength doesn't come from what you can do. It comes from overcoming the things you once thought you couldn't. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. Because the strongest factor for success is self-esteem. Believing you can do it, believing you deserve it, and believing that you'll get it. A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking, because its trust is not on the branch, but on its own wings.
We need to take a statement so we can establish what happened on Saturday night.
What time did you get back to David's flat?
What time? I don't know.
Can you give us an estimate?
I don't remember.
Would your pals remember what time you left the club?
He seemed nice.
She didn't remember much, did she?
I know. And now we've got to waste more time on a daft lecture. We know how to deal with victims. We've had years of experience.
Well, some of us have had more years than others.
I'm in my prime, I'll have you know.
That'll be right.
Today's session is about trauma. The latest in brain science will help you in your work. I'll start with a tour of the parts of the human brain. The reptilian brain maintains basic bodily functions. The limbic system is also instinctive. It deals with fear and pleasure. For example, you pat a dog, it senses pleasure, and without thinking, wags its tail. The neocortex is the site of logic, imagination, planning and control. It's more sophisticated, but because it's conscious, it's slower than the older parts of the brain. The amygdala is a key part of the limbic system. It has one job: to sense danger and set off the alarm. When it's a matter of survival, the primitive parts of the brain override the conscious part. There are 3 possible survival responses: fight, flight, Or the one that people don't think of, freeze. When the alarm goes off, blood and oxygen are diverted to muscles, adrenaline floods the body, and all systems that are not crucial to survival are switched off. Normally, the job of the hippocampus is to file memories so you can retrieve them later. But in times of danger, it stops filing memories, which makes it harder to gather evidence later on. Instead, the hippocampus switches to pumping cortisol. What's useful about cortisol is it stops us feeling pain, so we can focus on survival. Can anyone give me an example?
A farming accident where a man carried his own arm for a mile without feeling any pain?
Yes, excellent example. It is an evolutionary safety mechanism which is fast and instinctive. In essence, it's our body's very clever way of protecting us. To recap, an example of the three parts of the brain working together. You're standing at a bar. Your reptilian brain is keeping your heart beating. You're enjoying the pleasure of a nice pint with your limbic system. You're using your neocortex to work out if there's time for another before the last train. What could happen to make the amygdala kick in? What if this happened? The way you'd respond would depend not on your logical brain, but on your instinctive brain. Being glassed in a bar would be a traumatic experience. Who can give me another example of an event that can cause trauma?
War?
Rape?
A car crash?
Good, yes. Trauma occurs when a person is overwhelmed by something beyond their control. The survival brain takes over the rational brain. It can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, with symptoms that last at least a month. Vicarious or secondary trauma is something you may experience if you deal with incidents such as rape or sudden death, or think of Lockerbie, Dunblane. You're not superheroes. Having a brain makes you all vulnerable to secondary trauma. It's important to understand that when trauma occurs again and again, it can become complex PTSD, such as in domestic abuse or child sexual abuse. The alarm system in the brain becomes jammed. Memories are stuck in the limbic system, so a trigger can set off the alarm. The trigger could be anything: a colour, a smell, a sound, a sensation. Now, the indicators of trauma. What should you be looking out for?
Depression? Crying a lot?
Yes, that's one response. And at the other end of the spectrum, total numbness.
Nightmares? Flashbacks?
Stress?
Good, yes. And they may feel sick. Also, shame, feelings of guilt, inability to enjoy sex, social isolation, triggers. People often feel overwhelmed by the symptoms of trauma. This can lead to using alcohol or other drugs to block out memories, or self-harm, or dissociation when a person's mind detaches from reality. Indicators can be specific to the type of trauma. Say, dental problems, when someone who was orally abused avoids going to the dentist. A victim of abuse might bond strongly to her abuser. This is known as traumatic bonding, or Stockholm syndrome. And jumbled up memory, when a person's normal recording of memories doesn't work. Can you recall any times you've seen that symptom?
What time? I don't know.
A traumatised person may not seem like her usual self, or may be hypervigilant, on edge, or being startled by everyday things. Everyone is different. You never know what impact trauma will have. Symptoms can change from day to day. So what does all this mean, in practice, in your job? A traumatised person's brain is protecting them, but that normal human response of self-protection can get in the way of evidence gathering. The US military has developed new trauma-informed interviewing techniques that you can use to work around this. Research shows that if someone seems vacant, they could be distracted by their traumatic memories. Try to ground them by asking a simple, non-patronising question such as, "Are you thirsty? Do you want a glass of water?" This can help bring them back to the here and now. Don't expect a logical, linear story. Ask, "What can you recall just now?" Find out what the victim physically felt or saw. Working this way, from the instinctive sensory parts towards the logical parts of the brain, you'll get more results. In conclusion, 4 things for you to take away. Trauma response is the brain in survival mode. Repeated abuse can make trauma symptoms worse. In response to trauma, people will behave in unexpected ways. Remember, trauma is a normal human response to abnormal events.
We know that you've gone through a really painful experience, but we need to take a statement to understand what happened on Saturday night.
Are you able to tell us anything that you remember about his flat? Anything at all?
A dog. Barking.
Are you able to remember any physical sensations or feelings that you had?
Cigarette smoke. I can smell it now.
What was going through your mind?
I couldn't understand it. I just couldn't move, or even scream.
To freeze is a perfectly normal response. So you start with the memories, you don't start at the beginning. You have to engage with our feelings to get to the facts.
Makes sense. Check you, Professor, getting all sciencey on us.
Well, if it gets us usable evidence.
There's life in the old dog yet.
Oi,